already posted this story on another subreddit, but it wasn't in English, and you guys are more fun to talk to, so this is one of my only scary experiences. It happened when I was 13 or 14. I was on vacation in England with my parents, my uncle and his then girlfriend. We had rented an Airbnb in Oxford for 3 nights, and it was the first day. We'd just gotten there, and the adults went out to buy groceries. I was tired from the trip, so I decided to stay in the apartment. It had 6 rooms, the hallway, the bathroom facing the entrance door, with the kitchen, the living room and the 2 bedrooms on the sides. My room had 2 beds, one next to the door and the other on the other side of the room, under the window and next to the radiator. So anyways, I was now alone in the flat, and I started watching horror stories. Ironically, I was listening with headphones on, but they were low quality so I could kinda hear through them. So eventually, like 10 to 20 minutes after my parents left, I started to hear voices. I paused the video and the voices stopped. 30 seconds later, the video was back on, and I heard voices again. So this time I took the headphones off. I could still hear the voices, so I assumed it might have been people from another flat on the same floor. But at one point they started to knock on the door and call hello. I was alone. I was 14 and I had just watched 2 compilations of horror stories in a row. You think I was gonna answer? No, I put the video back on, but I was uneasy, so I wasn't really listening. Instead, I was focused on the voices, and I was right, because not a minute later, I heard the front door open. It couldn't be my parents. We're not native English speakers, and that accent was too good to be theirs, even if they were playing a prank on me, and it was definitely not their voice. So I did what any reasonable paranoid 14-year-old would have done in this scenario. I grabbed my stuff that was on the bed, my phone and my dagger. I used to have a pair of daggers, and I would always take at least one with me on trips, just to be safe. Yes, I was a weird kid, and I hid behind the bed, so between the mattress and the wall, and I called my dad, in tears, panicked, whisper shouting so that he would hear me but the intruder wouldn't, that there was someone in the apartment. Meanwhile, the intruder was opening every door and checking every room. For some reason, my dad said he would be back in maybe 10 minutes. He told me to stay hidden and quiet, and I could hear him running on the other side of the line. Eventually he hung up, and not 2 minutes after that, the person opened the door to my room. And I prayed, I'm an atheist, still, to whatever God's up there, that he would not walk straight toward me. And, of course, with my legendary luck, he walked straight toward me. So I closed my eyes, breathed in, clutched my knife and my phone, and got up, shaking. If I had to go down, I would go down fighting. When I faced him, I could just see the surprise on his face. He almost jumped when he saw me. I mean, who wouldn't? Really, when you break into a house and see a crying, scowling teenager holding a weapon in your general direction, getting up from behind a bed. I asked with a heavy French yes. I'm French. Surprise, surprise accent. Who are you? And you know what the guy said. He had the audacity to answer, I'm the owner of the apartment. Just kidding, I'm not actually mad. My dad got there like 1 minute later, during which the guy and me were just standing there, side-eyeing each other in awkward silence, and we both cried a lot, while the guy almost also cried and apologized over and over again. I apologized to don't worry. It turns out when we arrived the boiler had died, and my parents called him to warn him, but managed to fix it after a while. And the guy came without warning them because he wanted to check the radiators. That's why he came straight toward me when he walked into the room I was in. But all is fine. What's funny is, during the few minutes I spent in pure terror in the room, while he was checking the rest of the flat, my brain was divided into halves. One that was absolutely chaotic, and the other, slightly more rational, that went stay quiet. And maybe if we survive, we'll post this on Reddit one day. I guess I have finally achieved that. Okay, I never really post anything on Reddit, mostly just reading. So please excuse me if I do or say anything that isn't common courtesy here. In around 2018-2019, I-5F, at the time was 1819, was living in Nebraska, where I grew up. I lived in the largest city in Northeast, but it was still essentially surrounded by corn and wheat fields. The city was expanding, so rich folks started building huge houses with giant properties on the edge of town as things proceeded to grow. All of that being said, I had a good friend whose parents' house was one of those big ones right on the blurring line between the fields and the city. My friends and I were constantly hanging out at his place because it was fun. They had tons of property to ride for XFOURS on, a hot tub, a huge living room for us to watch sports and have reality TV binge sessions, and so on. Plus his parents were super cool, and we could drink out there as long as we stayed at the house. It was tons of fun, even though I was divided by I'm quite scared of the dark, so I would just not go outside after a certain time, because there was little lighting and the nearest neighbor was about a mile away. I always felt a weird energy driving divided by from his place if it was late at night, but never had anything happen until one night. The drive out, there was a long winding two-way road that had fake trees on both sides, and you pass one of the city's largest cemeteries on the way. Barely any lighting, of course, besides the street lamps every once in a while, and very little traffic. It's all inherently a bit creepy, and I'll admit to having sped through this section of road many times to get through it as quickly as possible. This specific night was perfect spring weather, so I was driving with my windows down listening to music, and it was around 10 p.m. I was coming around one of the curves in the road when I had to essentially slam my brakes on. Right in front of me in the middle of the road, maybe 50 yards away, was what looked like a family. Again, picture a completely pitch black road with thick forest on both sides and only my headlights to show what's in front of me. This was a family of 3-4, a tall, slim woman, an average height divided by weight man, a child, short hair but couldn't tell the gender based on the clothing, and couldn't see their face, maybe around 8 years old, and the mother was pushing a fucking stroller. Their clothes looked normal, not tattered but not nice. They also were not carrying any kind of light source, meaning before I arrived behind them in my car, they had been walking in the pitch black. They were all facing away from me, walking completely silent in the middle of the street, the same direction I was heading. I had turned my music down to hear if they were speaking, had music playing, and so on. They didn't. The hairs on my arms immediately stood up. I came to a stop in the road behind them, obviously, and just sat there for a moment to let them move. They seemed to be completely unaffected by me and didn't even turn their heads slightly, nor did they attempt to move out of my way. I literally thought I was going insane, or that I was dreaming. It was so surreal. Before I really had time to fully process and register what I was seeing and how truly strange it was, they all, at the same time, stopped walking and very slowly turned to face my car. This scared the absolute shit out of me. I honestly didn't even give myself enough time to look at their faces as they turned. I immediately threw my car in reverse and sent it backwards for probably a full 20 seconds before flipping a U-turn, nearly running myself off the road and booking it the other direction. The only thing I remember noticing is that the stroller looked to be completely empty. This was the part that sticks in my mind the most. I've never felt terror like that in my life. I checked my rearview mirror probably 1,000 times before getting to a main road and never saw a glimpse of them. In fact, I never saw a glimpse of them ever again. I tried asking my friend and his family about it, only to essentially feel like I was insane because of the way they looked at me. Every time I tell this story, I get one of three reactions. They immediately think I'm fucking cuckoo, think I'm lying, or have had something sort of similar happen to them. I really don't care if no one believes me. Honestly, it was, and still is, the creepiest thing to ever happen to me. I think about it all the time. It was either some weird-ass family trying to scare the shit out of someone, a distraction for an attempted robbery divided by assault divided by and so on, or it was something more sinister. I'm going to tell myself for probably the rest of my life that it was the first option. This happened maybe around 2015, 2016. I was a preteen young teenager at the time. I still have no idea what can explain this, and I've told many people about it. I grew up with very strict parents who often grounded me and enjoyed waiting until holidays or any such day I was excited for. This time I had been grounded for the entirety of Christmas break, meaning no presents, no electronics, no friends divided by going out, and so on. My parents had invited friends over during one of these nights. These friends brought their two dogs over to play with our family dog. The adults had decided to go out. I don't remember what for, some party or something. Either way, since they weren't coming back until next morning, I was tasked with watching and caring for the dogs. I, of course, used this opportunity to watch the TV downstairs in the living room with the dogs. Obviously, since it was Christmas time, our house was decorated. Most notably were these sort of fragile plastic or glass fake candles on each window, plugged in to light up. So I was laying on the couch, watching TV with all three dogs snuggled up around me. But every few hours they'd all leap off the couch and start barking endlessly at the front door right beside the living room. The first time, I had gone over to the window next to the front door to see if my parents and their friends were pulling into the driveway early, or if maybe a neighbor came by, or a wild animal in the yard, and so on. Nothing. So I ushered the dogs back to the couch, relaxed, and it was fine. But it kept happening over and over again. I don't remember exactly how many times the dogs did this, but at the last time, I had gotten up to calm them down again. I noticed they were angled slightly more to the window with a candle than the door this time. I was intending to peek out the window to see if something was there, but as I did so, the candle was suddenly torn out from the socket in the wall and broke against the wall behind me. The dogs erupted in more panic. I had no idea what to do and ran upstairs with them following. I don't exactly know what my plan was here. If this happened nowadays, I'd most likely go outside or go to a neighbor. But regardless, I locked myself and the dogs in my bedroom upstairs until I eventually fell asleep. The next morning, my parents returned and I got in trouble for breaking their decorative candle. They'd never believe me if I told them what happened, and I'm honestly still confused. I think it's something paranormal, but I'll never know fully. So this story happened about 11 years ago. I was a senior in high school at the time, but it is the single most mind-boggling thing that I have ever experienced. It's also important to note that it happened in mid-December. I am from Iowa, and the winters here get cold at night. Like if you get stuck outside, you will die kind of cold. That plus the snowfall makes everything dead silent. You can hear anything and everything inside the house and even immediately outside of it. Well, me and my best friend were hanging out in my family's walkout basement, just having a boring winter night playing video games. We were also the only ones home. The reason it was just us is because my mother went from work straight to a bar to grab a few drinks with coworkers. So me and my friend thought it would be a good idea to break into the family wine and live a little. As we were sitting there opening up the first bottle, I hear the door to the garage open and slam shut. I immediately go, oh shit, and start looking for places to hide the bottle. My friend then says, I thought you said your mom was supposed to be out all night. She was, I replied. I then heard a few heavy stomps and hear my mother yell out, Nia Sanbu, anyone home? I yell back up the stairs, yep, just hanging out in the basement. I hear a few more steps move from the garage door towards the stairs, and she yells out again, can you come help me with something? I need you up here. I reply back while frantically trying to find a good place to hide the wine bottle, yep, give me just a minute. Then there was silence for about 20 seconds. Anyone down there with you? She yelled back in a more concerned, serious tone, in a voice that was slightly off of my mother's. This was the first thing that told me something wasn't right. Our family never cared if anyone was over, as our house was a very open house to all family and friends. And the voice, it was just wrong, like it sounded like my mother's. But it was missing something that I couldn't put my finger on. Weirded out, I replied back, just Colton. After I yelled that back to her, I found a good place to hide the bottle and began walking up the steps to the next level. Now, as I was walking up the steps, I couldn't help but feel the overbearing silence of the house and the slight electric twinge that something isn't right. When I got to the top of the steps, I look over to where the door to garage is and also the kitchen right next to it, and it's black. Pitch black. All of the lights were off, and there was no moonlight shining through any windows. I walked over to the kitchen yelling out, Mom, where are you? There was no reply, just silence and darkness. I feel the electric twinge turn into full needles, and my adrenaline kicking in full force. I have to get out of here as fast as possible. My mother was not home. I run back down the stairs, grabbing my coat along the way. What's wrong? Colton says. My mom's not home, I reply as fast as I can, looking for my truck keys. What do you mean? You were just talking with her. I could see the confusion in his face. There's no one home. We need to leave now. I took a few steps towards the back door that opens up to the yard, and then I see my dog shaking on the couch and my cat growling behind it. I couldn't leave them. I just knew that if we left, something would happen. Are we leaving? Colton said, still confused as all hell. No, I can't leave them here alone. Something is really off. I'm going to call my mom and figure this out. I pull out my phone and call my mom. She picks up immediately. Mia Senbu. What's going on? She answers. Mom, were you just home? I heard you yelling for me from the second level, and when I went up you weren't there. I said frantically, hoping that she was playing a joke. No, I'm just leaving the bar. I wasn't feeling very well. Are you okay? What do you mean you heard me? I fill her in on the whole story and she rushes home. Colton and I stayed in the basement with the animals until she got home. But before she did, you could hear something upstairs. Not walking or sitting on things, but a pressure in the air. Like a black hole was slowly moving from one room to the next. And the word that I would instinctively describe it as is hungry. When she got home, you could feel the thing leave just as quick as it came. Like an overbearing predatory presence had just flown away. We still have never figured out what the hell was going on. And this is just one story of many unexplainable things that have happened to us. But this is the easiest to write down, and one that I was happy to have a witness. My mother has passed away now, and I have moved away to Arizona. But whenever I go back to Iowa and I see Colton, he still gets creeped out by what had happened. I will never truly know what happened, but I know that whatever it was that had my mother's voice, it was evil and it was hungry.